He tries. He works. He puts out decent films, i.e. Amityville in Space, where we get decent CGI, an okay story, and a futuristic feel. What more do you want? What more do you want?
Welcome in everybody to this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna apologize to everybody first. I'm just so sorry in advance. So sorry. This is a public announcement. We've never let Jesse pick a movie before, and we will now wait another 3 years before we ever allow Jesse to pick a movie. We are sorry for those of you that watched this movie with us, watch this movie on your own. But we are here today to review the movie Amityville in Space. Jesse, explain yourself, I guess, and say hello.
This is what you get. That's what you get for never letting me decide on movies.
Yeah.
But this doesn't help your cause.
Yeah, this doesn't help you.
It does not at all.
Dave is here as well.
I'm just really happy to be here.
Are you?
No.
Well, I guess we watched it together in Discord, which means if you guys are interested, occasionally we do movie nights in our Discord, so join there, and we put you through hell to watch a movie with us. But Dave, please give us the synopsis for this movie? Question mark?
Mm-hmm. Amityville in Space 2022, I guess. Really? This is 2022? That's what it says here. Directed by Mark Polonia, produced by Rob Hochschild. The infamous Amity murder house is exorcised from Earth and somehow ends up in outer space. That's the synopsis.
I love that synopsis. You really nailed it.
It really does. And yeah, 2022, which I would have guessed this movie was shot on somebody's VHS camcorder in 1994. That would have been my guess if you put a gun to my head and made me guess. But really the only question is like, where does this movie land in your top 3 all-time favorite movies?
The real question is how you were almost 1,000 years off with the date. This movie actually took place in 3015.
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Because obviously when the Amityville house gets lifted into space, it jumps forward almost 1,000 years.
Yeah, light years and stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. So I wasn't claiming that that's when the movie took place. Just claiming when they shot the movie.
I'm just here to
it's not a real, it's not a real story.
This is a documentary.
It looked like it. It looked like a documentary. It looked like a whole movie. Before we tear this movie apart, because we are going to, the one thing nice that I will say is I do give credit to people that actually put movies together like this, because they have the ambition, they have the drive to get it together and actually film it and shoot it. So kudos to the actors.
Yeah, if you get Nerf gun, you got some Nerf guns and some Halloween masks, you can get it done.
Get it done.
That's all you need.
Most people talk about it and don't do it. So kudos to them for actually doing it. But that is probably the only nice thing I'm going to say about this movie for the rest of the review. Does anyone want to kick this off?
Titus Himmelberger was the main character who played Captain Halstead.
Yeah.
And he seemed like he was making an effort with his acting. I'm not going to say he did well, because there was nothing good about this movie, including the acting, especially the acting, maybe even. But he was the least bad, I think. So I'll say that. Let's get the positives out of the way.
Okay. What other positives do we have?
Well, I don't have any negatives. The positives. Positives of this movie is, I mean, it's a B movie. We know what it is. They know what it was when they shot it in someone's living room, and it was self-aware. Obviously they didn't try.
Yeah, it was there had to be no budget, and it was, what I'm guessing was, they were like, we're going to usurp the Amityville name and just basically invest $0 into this movie, and just because it's called Amityville, stupid people like Jesse, Rob, and Dave are going to buy it and watch
review it.
Yeah,
so, I guess it works. So we brought this up at some point, I think the last movie review, where there's like close to 50 Amityville titled movies.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it worked because we found it, we watched it, we're reviewing it. But I think it would be harder to find these movies because when you type in Amityville, all the haunting stuff's going to come up. The main few movies from the franchise are going to come up, and these are sort of going to be buried. I guess you're hoping that people are just typing in Amityville on movie search bars, and they
so what do you do to stand out?
Yeah,
you have the most absurd premise, like Amityville in space. Sure. Like the house gets exercised from planet. That's how you stand out, right? What you don't do is you don't do this and then just make another Amityville movie like the original story. You just go completely as off the wall as possible, which is what they did. Fair. And like we've said a couple times, apparently it was at least slightly effective. I can't find what they did, how it performed in the box office for some reason.
I mean, they knew what they were doing with
it. They made too much money.
Well, I was wrong about that. They did not know what they were doing, but they knew that if they made the most ridiculous Amityville movie, that it would get views. And it was kind of a self-aware movie. So you get movies like this, like for instance, we just started watching what was it? I can't remember the name.
Inhuman Witch or something.
Right, which kind of just was next in the queue, and we're like, that looks awesome. Let's watch that as well. So we watched about half of that movie, and it was great because it was self-aware, but it was purposely doing stupid things.
Yeah,
this movie was self-aware at times, but it didn't do enough to be stupid. I know that sounds crazy because the whole thing was stupid, but they weren't self-aware stupid enough where you watch this and it just looks like a really bad, like, I would say like middle school project, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to, a few of them were trying to do a good job acting. There wasn't any real intentionally goofy scenes. Now, 100% of this movie were goofy scenes, but there wasn't, for example, if you take the Inhuman Witch scene where the monster's eating the guy's legs out of the garage. Sorry, spoiler alert for that really good movie. But they pull him out and he just has skeleton legs, no blood at all, ridiculous legs, and it's funny. It's horror comedy. This movie should have done more in the horror comedy department and been more self-aware, and it would have been a more enjoyable watch. Instead, you just got the absolute worst special effects, absolute awful lighting, absolute awful costume design, the worst acting, but people were still trying to act good, and it just didn't flow because it was somewhere in the middle of, yes, this is a terrible movie, but we aren't self-aware enough to make it more goofy.
Yeah. They weren't even self-aware enough to not have the reflection of the camera in the lens of the astronaut suit.
Which was very blatant.
It killed me every time it was on screen.
There was no attempt to make the lighting creepy. Like I get it. There's no budget with this movie. LED lights are pretty cheap. And for audio listeners, we've pulled up an image where you can see the reflection of the camera right in the astronaut's face and the little lighting that they did use. And in this scene, they actually used blue lighting. So how come when they're encountering the demon, why didn't they didn't use any lighting? It's just cafeteria lighting inside this side room that was supposed to be on a spaceship with its wooden doors. And it was,
this is when they're in the house.
No, this was bad. This was an encounter back on the spaceship. I'm sure this might be in the house, this scene that you pulled up here.
You're referring to
I'm referring to a scene where they encountered and they're having like a 44-minute conversation with this demon, and he's just wearing his ape mask and his COVID mask and the hood and stuff. And but they could have made that scene like a little bit creepier if they just shut the damn lights off, use a little fog machine and some red uplighting, which they had uplighting. So why didn't you use it in this scene? Instead, he's just having a conversation in a break room. It's just zero effort on making any of these scenes creepy when they could have done some little things here to make some of these scenes a little bit better.
I usually don't nitpick on lighting because like I'm no expert on it. I sort of know what I'm looking for without knowing how it works, but I can tell you that this was the worst lighting in any movie I've ever seen in my life. There was like different angles that sometimes looked washed out and just awful lighting on the set of this movie.
I think you had pointed out while we were watching it where there's a conversation happening in the same room with two actors. And for one of the shots, they're using a filter. And then you go back to the other person, they're not using a filter. They're in the same room. The filter didn't look good, but there should be some consistency there when you're editing this thing.
Yeah, you're drawing so much attention to it. As people who have edited stuff, obviously we're editing different types of stuff. We're editing live footage, but we're still trying to color correct a little bit on this stuff. And if either of you or I sent you something where I'm showing one side of Dave and one side of me, or vice versa or whatever, and I dropped a filter on one and not the other, you guys would kill me, right? And I would kill the both of you. Like, what is this? What are you doing there? So
exactly, just little things they could have done. So I mean, they used legitimate, what looked like Nerf guns for their laser guns here, and it's not that much more to upgrade to an airsoft gun, which looks very realistic. Like, you don't have to use these Nerf guns that they were using. So I don't know, maybe that's one of the little gags where they were being self-aware, but it didn't strike me as that. It's just there wasn't enough goofy moments in this movie for me to be like, this is a horror comedy. It's just bad horror that you laugh at, not with.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the problem? A problem with this movie was, I know we talked about lighting, but just like the look of the movie overall, which was, it is what it is. They use what they use to film it, but it's
cell phones.
Maybe not even like I think I should shoot a better movie on my iPhone. Right. I think it would look better, but it looked worse than every found footage horror movie I've ever watched, and it was not intended to be found footage quality.
And all the special effects were Neil Breen special effects, which killed me. Which, God, we need to watch a Neil Breen movie in Discord. I know they're not horror movies per se, but that would be a lot of fun to watch in Discord.
They are the greatest movies.
They are the greatest movies. I love them so much.
Here's a serious review. 7 out of 10.
Oh my God, I had it pulled up too. Is it the one titled Rather Likable?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Quite likable for what it is, even if it does not follow the same theme as some of the other Amityville films. Still enjoyable and good enough for its purpose of being a Friday night film. We watched it on a Friday night film, and I don't agree. Yes, I know some people will say it isn't to scratch with the original story, doesn't follow suit, isn't good as The Possession or A New Generation or The Awakening, but it's not supposed to be. It's done by different people. Mark Polonia, who has that laugh style about him. Amityville in Space is no classic, wasn't going to be, but the issue some people have with Mark is borderline silly. He tries, he works, he puts out decent films, i.e. Amityville in Space, where we get decent CGI, an okay story, and a futuristic feel. What more do you want? What more do you want? Overall, I give this film a 7.
You know who I think wrote that review?
Mark
Polonia, I think, wrote that review.
So, fun fact: this movie was shot in Mark's house.
Hell yeah!
Which I guess he does that in about 90% of his movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which again, kudos to people that get it done. I will always give credit to people that actually go out and at least attempt to film something. But just because you do it doesn't make it really good. I have another review here that's a 6 out of 10. Do you know? I'm not going to read the whole thing.
You can't do it.
No, but it's titled "Finally."
That's what I said when it was over.
Yes. Directed by Mark Polonia, who has been to Amityville before with Amityville Island, Amityville Exorcism, and Amityville Death House, and co-written by Polonia and Aaron Drake. This brings back Father Benna from Amityville Exorcism and begins with a final battle against the darkness on the house on 112 Ocean Ave. The demon inside cuts off the priest's hand, and in pain, the holy man begs for God to help him. His prayers are answered as the house is blasted into not only space, but the far future. I mean, I'm here for all of this. You know how I am about Amityville. You know how I am about Amityville. Not to mention horror sequels in space.
Yeah. I remember when the priest got his hand cut off and how he immediately just moved on. Just like, anyways. Yeah. I'd be a little bit more upset if I lost one of my hands. That's a pretty important tool.
I also feel like the choice on the missing hand just being completely bandaged was not the right choice.
I know. They bandaged it so much too. It was like now his hand is the size of a frying pan. It's like it's supposed to look like he doesn't have a hand. Pretty dumb.
Yeah, I'm going to read one more passage from this review. The moment that I knew I would love this movie is when the spaceship that finds the Amityville house floating within a black hole. We see the crew contains a robot named Vox. Said robot's costume looks like a silver foil welding suit version of Wildfire from the Legion of Superheroes. That's topped by this film's version of the demon, which just looks like a spirit store version of a final boss from a Mortal Kombat ripoff game from 1993. That's when I knew I was going to love this movie.
Which weird. So I can't tell if this is this review satirical.
I think this review is somebody that just like really likes bad movies, and
which there's a market for that, and that's exactly who they're making this movie for. Is people who like that.
I think Jesse outlined it in the beginning. Like you have bad horror movies that are self-aware, and you have bad horror movies that are not self-aware. And which is weird because that's like the opposite take I've had in the past, is the ones that are self-aware are not as funny, and the ones that are not self-aware usually are unintentionally funny. That was the opposite with those two movies we watched that night.
Yeah, but this one in particular is trying to straddle a bit of the line, which is always the worst combination. When you know what you are and you're trying to lean into it a little bit, but not everybody's in on it. Like if you're going to be in on it, you need to be in on it. If you're not in on it, those are some of the best ones. There are self-aware movies. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a horror comedy that is self-aware and is absolutely incredible, right?
True. But so it's like a different scale of self-aware bad horror movies. We're talking about like Z movies, like not just B movies. Like we're talking like bottom of the barrel, cost you $140 to make it. You know, like this is one of those movies, and you get ones like this that are good, or they're extremely enjoyable, but still absolutely terrible. And then you get movies like this, which is in the middle. So I do believe the director is very self-aware that he makes bad movies. This is his thing. And this one just didn't hit the mark because there just wasn't enough gags throughout it that made it clear. And I've said this like 4 times, so I'm not going to say it again. But then you have the other side of the spectrum, which is like your Neil Breens and your The Room, where their first few projects, I don't think they were self-aware at all. I think they were legitimately trying to make good movies. And because there wasn't enough of that self-awareness in this movie, this one kind of crosses into that territory. But at the same time, it wasn't entertaining enough to be a rewatchable bad movie. I'll watch The Room every day. I love that movie. It's so good. So bad, but it's so good because they were taking themselves seriously. So you got to pick a lane here, I think, with these movies.
There is another review on the site that I'm going to read real quick and we don't usually read other reviews. I just feel like they're more prevalent for this particular movie.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah, occasionally, but like generally we steer clear of it. This one is a 2 out of 10, titled The Polonia Brothers Strike Again. The Polonia Brothers love their weird, what the fuck am I watching mashup movies, and this is another one of those. This is the kind of movie that I have to give 2 ratings. For a general movie watching audience, this is really very, very bad. Everything about it is very bad. The story makes no sense. The effects are laughable. The dialogue is terrible. The acting is strictly amateur hour. 2 out of 10 is being generous. For a fan of no budget, schlocky Z-grade horror in general, or the Polonia brother in particular, I would give this a 6 out of 10. It just doesn't have the entertainment value of something like Sharkula.
Jesse, we're going to let you make one more movie.
Do I get to pick Sharkula?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I will say, like, black holes exist in space. Mm-hmm. The Amityville house is obviously in space.
In real life.
Yeah, of course. That's what I was saying. Massive pentagrams. What was going on with that? Yeah. What was up with that little guy?
Technically, the Amityville house is in space. Earth is in space.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Thanks for getting philosophical on us in this movie review.
It's not philosophy.
All right.
But yeah, the pentagram. I don't know what that was about. That was weird.
Yeah.
They destroyed it.
They destroyed it. But they didn't win because the demon had already infected the boss on another. Oh my God, I hate this movie. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's so bad.
Yeah. Normally we try to stretch these to 30 minutes, but I don't think we'll torture our viewers any longer that are actually listening to this review. It was an absolutely perfect movie. I highly recommend you go see it. Spend all of your money on it.
I do think, Jesse, you're so right on the uplighting thing. I don't think it saves this movie, but I think it could have tremendously helped a few of these terrible scenes that make it a little less grating.
Yeah, you don't have to have, like, where you don't have good cameras. So just dim the lights, have him be a shadow figure standing in the doorway with a little red light behind him. It's going to be such a better scene. And the scene was way too long too. It just dragged on this back and forth conversation between this demon and this priest, who would, by the way, should have been way more scared than he was. He's just priest just sitting there having a normal conversation. He's like, hey, listen, I just time traveled by about 1,000 years. I don't really care what happens at this point. I don't even know if I have a home to go home to.
Fair. So. One of the other things I loved is when the house is floating in space and they're in the house, we can still see cars going through the window and all the outside world, like all the trees on some of the scenes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So those ghost cars.
Ghost cars.
Residual haunting.
Yeah.
I have to ask this of you both. So is this movie better or not better than Skinamarink?
This is so much better than Skinamarink. Leaps and bounds.
That's a tough one.
Jesse, I'm with you. This movie is objectively
it's a better time watching this movie.
I had a better time watching this movie. I will say.
It's also a better movie. It's literally shot better.
It's tough to say because this is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. This is a better movie than Skinamarink.
It is. It has a plot. There's dialogue.
The point is, at the end of this movie, you ask yourself, why did I watch that? And at the end of Skinamarink, you ask yourself, why did I watch that? They're on the same level, but this one's a little bit better. At least I was entertained.
Yeah. My only pushback is I still think there was one really good scene in Skinamarink.
Take that scene out of Skinamarink and put it in any other movie, and it's easily the worst scene of the entire movie.
That's a good point. That's
any movie.
Are we talking about the bedroom scene?
Yeah.
The parents sitting on the bed? Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Good question, Dave. Good question.
All right. Let's give some reviews of this movie. Does anyone want to kick it off?
No, because this is the first time I've ever gone into a movie review not knowing what I'm going to rate the movie. And that's because I don't know if I want to rate this movie, just because any rating I give this compares it to other movies that I've rated similarly. And it's just really isn't comparable. It's like a different genre of anything that we've ever covered, right? It's not a good movie.
So we haven't really reviewed like intentionally bad movies before.
So let's make it a relative scale. We are reviewing this movie in comparison with other zero budget movies, of which I've only ever I've seen one other one.
I watch these more than you know.
Yeah, Jesse, I actually had a memory pop up today of you sending me something from like 2013. It was like mega shark versus huge octopus. You're like, next sci-fi movie. Remember we went through that phase where we watched a sci-fi movie like every day?
Yes. It was a great time.
Yeah, it was very fun. Okay, that's fair. I was gonna give it a 0.3 based on all of our other scales, like trying to keep it, and I was just doing that because I do respect that they actually filmed it and actually found a way to make the movie.
I respect you. Here's an abysmal score.
I respect that you were able to do it. If we're doing it based on the guidelines that you just gave out, it's funny, since you can't give something a 5, it just breaks your brain and you have to change the rules here. I'm going to give it a 1.1 on those rules. 1.1 black holes out of 5.
That's reasonable. And so what I have to compare this against, which I don't like comparing movies to other movies in order to reference a score because it could be arbitrary. I mean, it's not arbitrary anyways. It's my subjective score. But I got to compare it to the Inhuman, which we watched there, right? The Room is another one that is just one of my favorites. And then like Sharknado, which was fantastic. I mean, this one, unfortunately, even though we're putting it on a relative scale, I still have to score it pretty low. I'm going to give it a 1.8.
All right, fair.
Yeah. I was going to give it a 1.8. I'll stick with the 1.8. So that's also my score. It was just, I love low budget movies. I love bad sci-fi movies. I love just bad movies in general. And this one was hard to love. So it was there. It just needed you got to put a little bit of effort in. So yeah, I got it at a 1.8 as well.
Dave, you got to watch a Neil Breen movie with us.
Yeah, I've watched the clips you guys showed me on YouTube.
Yeah, I started with the clips. I couldn't stop watching like all of his movies. You can't just stop at the YouTube clips.
Yeah, it's some of the best stuff ever. I think he started like a course or something. He's the best, is what we will say. So maybe we'll do some Neil Breen thing. I'm gonna pick the next movie because there's a movie that I've been wanting to review and we just haven't done it, and it keeps popping up on my recommended for you.
It better be Sharkula.
Well, we'll do Sharkula in the future. How about that? We're going to do From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, good call.
Okay. And I really want to watch From Dusk Till Dawn.
We haven't that?
No. And that's all we're going to say, because I don't think, Jesse, if I recall, you haven't seen it before. So
correct.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun review. I'm excited to watch it. One of my favorite movies. So yeah, if you're in there, watch From Dusk Till Dawn with us. Any closing thoughts, Jesse?
No. But I think we make this a thing every once in a while, sprinkle in a bad horror movie.
Well, we have to. We created a whole scale for it. So
we did.
Dave, we can't. Well, they can't be stars. So in the comments, let us know what we're giving it out of a 5 rating for, since we can't do star rating for this. This is a different scale. Let us know what you think that rating should be. Dave, do you have any closing thoughts?
No.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of HTGS Reviews, where we reviewed Amityville in Space. Let us know if you watched it. If you watched it with us in Discord, give us your scores.
How is this the only Amityville movie we reviewed?
I know, it's so
out of 45 of them.
Yeah, Jesse's fault. But it started a whole new thing for us. But so I'm here for it. But we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.